Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to TED Talks Ball. We got a special Thursday edition, a special Behind Enemy Lines edition. I've got Matt Trigger here with me. You can find him on Twitter and X at BWATB, as in boy, podcast. And then he's also Charm City Heavyweights as well. He's a friend. We have a mutual friend named Adam who put us in contact with each other. They do shows together. Adam's a big-time Steelers fan and kind of a recent 49ers fan as well. And then obviously Matt is a Ravens fan, so we're here to discuss the game of the week, maybe the game of the season. It's just funny because the last two times I've said that were the Cowboys and Eagles, and neither of them really turned out to be the game of the season. At least, not for them. I mean, we were pretty happy with both. But I don't expect that to be the case with the Ravens. I've been saying all along that, like, in some ways, the 49ers have the number one statistical defense. But if we're not number one, I feel like the Ravens are, especially in scoring. You guys are the number one scoring defense. Not on that is.
This is a heavyweight fight, man. This has been circled on the calendar for a lot of Ravens fans, especially now that both of our teams are 11-3 heading into Monday Night Football on Christmas. I think the NFL knew what they were doing putting this game on Christmas night.
They do get it right from time to time. There's no doubt about it. This was one of the games I circled at the beginning of the season. The big three I circled were Cowboys, Bengals, and of course the Eagles. And then I had the Ravens. I thought, I didn't think you guys were going to be quite this good. I thought you guys would be really good, though, maybe a tier below with sort of like the Seahawks. But I thought the Seahawks would be better. I didn't think the Ravens would be this good. And clearly I didn't think that Joe Burrow would be, injured to start the season and out here now at the end of the season. But it seems like the Bengals still just won't go away. They're kind of interesting team.
Yeah, they definitely are. It's been weird to watch, and I'm probably going to upset some Cincinnati Bengals fans when I say this, but the success of their backup quarterback makes it almost look like Joe Burrow is a system quarterback as opposed to – I know it's a very, very slight sample size, but when you literally insert a quarterback that has next to nothing in terms of NFL experience, and then he's putting up the numbers that he's putting up with the starting offense, it almost makes you wonder how good he really is, considering he did this exact same thing at LSU. He's never had a non-elite wide receiving corps.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I've always had Josh Allen ahead of Joe Burrow, because I feel like Josh only has Stephon Diggs as an elite weapon, and Burrow has, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd probably isn't elite, but he sure is elite for a wide receiver 3, maybe the best wide receiver 3 in the league, maybe one of the best wide receiver 2s in the league. So, I can see that argument. It's either Joe Burrow's not that good or Jake Browning is a hell of a quarterback. Yeah. We know a little something about these young phenoms who come in and just tear things up. In fact, while we're talking about young quarterbacks, I usually stream with old Steve Young on, and a viewer of my shows sent me a gift, and so I was trying to decide. I said earlier this offseason, I said that I would get a Brock Purdy jersey if he won the Super Bowl, and then I was like, well, that's a little bit harsh if he's totally balling out and injuries happen or some fluky play happens that keeps us from the Super Bowl. I'm not going to hold that against Purdy. So I was pretty much resigning myself, like, it's about time to buy a Brock Purdy jersey. And Nancy Cameron, one of my best viewers, went ahead and got it for me. And then I was like, well, should I wait till after the Ravens game to put it on? Because, I'm not expecting him to look quite as good against y'all's defense. But ultimately it's a gift. And so hopefully people won't hold it against me. There's always this thing like, oh, well, Ted put on the Brock Purdy jersey and he started playing bad. And I'm just like, what am I going to do? It's a gift. I'm going to wear it. It was a very generous gift. She's been very generous to my channel.
Absolutely.
Super chats and stuff like that. And so, maybe it's even almost time to start using the E word. I've been very hesitant to call Brock Purdy elite. I think I'll wait until after the Ravens game. We'll see how that goes.
That is such an overused word because everybody wants their quarterbacks to be elite, and then elite is like the upper echelon. And when you're talking about 7 guys being elite in the league at the same time, it's a situation where I try to reserve that for the Mahomes. I consider Lamar an elite athlete, but he's still got some ways to go as an elite quarterback. But I can see what you're saying. Purdy is playing lights out right now, especially for a guy that was Mr. Irrelevant, a couple years ago. It's impressive, and he's definitely making the most of the situation because he was buried on the depth chart with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo just a year ago, and now here he is setting the league on fire and leading the MVP votes for most major sports coverage networks.
Yeah, I don't see him being the MVP if Lamar comes into Levi's and beats us though. And like I said, just like I talk about Josh Allen only has Stephon Diggs. I've been saying a lot that Mahomes only has Kelsey as an elite weapon. Lamar doesn't have any elite weapons now that Mark Andrews is injured for the season. Isaiah Likely is a nice story, but I don't consider him to be the same type of level of player. And so, I think all these QBs have to learn to compensate once they get paid, because you can't just have, this sort of cast of the Avengers, as Nick Wright likes to say about the 49ers, once you're getting $50-60 million a year. And we'll run into that too, hopefully in a couple of years, if we decide to pay Brock Purdy if he plays well enough.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky. Lamar's one thing I like about Lamar's game this year. I hate that Mark Andrews got hurt because he's an upper echelon tight end, and he's been Lamar's go-to for 6 years now, it seems like. And I think Andrews' injury was a blessing in disguise because it taught Lamar how to find other pass catchers. He has no choice now. Now you got to spread the ball around to Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham Jr., Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kohler. Now you got to throw to your running backs a little bit. Keaton Mitchell was getting a lot of targets thrown his way until his unfortunate ACL tear last week. He's got to find these guys that were paying a lot of money to catch the ball, especially Odell Beckham. And it seems like with Andrews' absence, now he has to look around and spread the ball out evenly. I think it's made him a better quarterback not having that crust to lean on.
There you go. That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I definitely, Lamar, he does a lot with a lot less. And he's obviously, like you said, an elite athlete. I think getting rid of Greg Roman was a great idea. Obviously, we don't have a lot of love lost for Greg Roman here in San Francisco, since he was our OC when we played y'all in the Super Bowl in New Orleans, and never gave Frank Gore the ball down on the goal line. It irked a lot of people, or even had Kaepernick keep it and run or anything like that. It was a pretty bad game plan, and I feel like he held you guys back. So I'm glad to see your new OC is doing a good job there. It's refreshing, and I'm sure you guys must be glad to have. Well, I'm not. Are you glad to have Mark Roman gone? I should ask.
I'm. A lot of people were tired of Greg Roman. I was tired of Greg Roman myself. It's one of those situations where he didn't develop the passing game the way that he developed the running game. He made our running attack one of the most legendary running attacks in a short span of time. That 2019, 2020, 2021 range where we were just grinding out thousands upon thousands of yards collectively between Lamar and the running backs. That was fun to watch, but it's 2023, and on my show with my co-host Josh, he has NFL All 22, and he would send me screenshots, and he's like, Matt, look at this, like all of our wide receivers were running routes with maybe 4 to 5 yards in between them spacing. So it was a very bunched offense. It was a lot of juvenile, high school-esque route combos to where there was nothing that was remotely close to being an NFL passing offense. And it stifled Lamar's growth because it was a lot different when Lamar was doing this in 2019. He was 22 years old, and he was faster than everybody on the field. And he hadn't taken a whole lot of damage to his body. Now you fast forward 3 years, 2 season-ending injuries, about 25 pounds in muscle gain, and now there's faster guys that are coming in the league that caught up to him, and it's one of those things where we got to protect this quarterback we got, because now you're paying him $50+ million a year, and it is one of those situations that you got to let this guy throw the ball. That's what we're paying him to do at the end of the day. You're not paying him $260 million to run the ball. That's absurd.
No doubt about it. And I always felt like he could do more, and it's good to see that he is. Lamar, that is. And like I said, it must make Ravens fans pretty happy to see that maturation and the opportunity to show what he can do in the passing game, as this has now become passing league. Real quick, I want to check in with the chat. We got Red Jet Shell in the house, just saying hi to the chat. She was here nice and early, a couple months before we went live. Silly Fun Guy in the house. He's a Rams fan, but he's pretty cool, and he usually brings some dad jokes, so be ready for that. Not always that funny, but very punny. So we'll see if he graces us with some of those. I got Jimmy Perez in the house saying, "Hey Ted, what's up, Jimmy? Welcome." Tommy Huxley, not thinking too much of the Bengals, calling them the Bungles, but they sure did shred us when Joe Burrow was healthy this season. He went 28 for 32 for 3 TDs against us, tore us to pieces. So, hard to be too negative about the Bengals if you're me. I always thought it was crazy that people had them in the high teens when Burrow was playing through injury. I just figured once he was back, he would tear people up, and little did I know we'd be one of those teams. Red Jet Shaw says, did we hear the E word? I haven't said it yet, but I'm getting closer all the time, no doubt about it. I think, like I said, if he plays well against the Ravens, I would have to say it next week. I mean, I've got him between 2 and 5 in the league, which is, some of those are elite spots now. 4 and 5, though, I don't know. 2 and 3, I think, are elite. I think there's at least 3 elite QBs in the NFL. Normally, sometimes as many as 5, but Rodgers and Burrow are injured. So, we'll see. Tommy Huxley with the super chat, $2. He says Mike Tomlin is your daddy. Oh, with the trash talk, even, Tommy.
Hey, it's okay.
He usually comes in with some trash talk towards me or my co-hosts. So that's very normal for Tommy Huxley. But thank you for the super chat, Tommy. Always appreciated, very generous. And I don't know. I don't know. The Steelers don't seem like they're anybody's daddy this year. I was just going back and forth with some. Go ahead. Give me your thoughts.
They're not. And I agree with you. They beat us literally at the end of the game, the last drive. George Pickens just got open, and it was a bad game. That game, and I'm not making excuses, but because I hate when people make excuses for the teams. I think it's kind of hard for the offense to put points on the board when you have 6 dropped passes in the field of play and you have 4 dropped passes in the end zone from all your pass catchers combined, Mark Andrews included. So, yeah, that was a situation where we had about 9 or 10 drop passes total, and you catch 2 of those footballs, it's a different game in the end zone. But we lost. That is Lamar's Achilles heel, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's fantastic against everybody else in the AFC North. He has high winning percentages against the Bengals and the Cleveland Browns, but I think he's beat the Steelers one time that he's played them.
Wow, that's impressive, no doubt about it. The reason I was thinking about like the Steelers aren't really owning anybody or anyone's daddy this season is because I was having this argument with Browns fans, and I would love to get your perspective as a fellow AFC North fan there. Oh, interesting. I also just saw a tweet that the 49ers signed a defensive tackle, Taylor Stallworth. I've never even heard of that guy. But that's where we are with the defensive tackles with Hargrave and Armstead. Not necessarily, they're questionable to be able to play. And one of our backup defensive tackles, Clea Davis, just went on IR. So we're really, really thin there. We can talk more about that in a sec. See here. So as far as here, get rid of that. So I was having this discussion with Browns fans. It came after we played the Browns. I guess it was week 5 when we played it must have been later than that. It must have been week 6, but they had already had their bye. So they'd only played 5 games. We were one of the 5. And they were on this historic pace defensively. They had allowed 1,002 yards through 5 games, so just over 200 yards a game. And there was some tweet about like, oh, the Browns, no team has given up this few yards through 5 games since the 1971 Colts. And I said, whoa, slow your roll. Like the Browns defense, I think they're great, but I think they might be overrated. And people like, I got a field day with that. Like, how can you be great but overrated? I'm like, well, I don't think you're historic, I don't think this is a historic defense. I've seen historic defenses like the 85 Bears and the 2000 Ravens and the 2002 Bucks, and the LOB defense I think is historic. And anyway, they started coming back at me today because there's some defensive efficiency stat that came out. I'll look through my stuff and see what it was, but it was basically like, bottom line is, what do you think about when I said that about the 1,002 yards over 5 games, I was like, by the way, Bengals, who you played, 32nd in yards gained this season, and Steelers, who you played, 30th in yards gained, and Titans 26th. Niners, obviously one of the best offenses. Even at that point, we've been all season one of the best offenses, but we were missing Debo, CMC, and Trent Williams sprained his ankle and was playing on one leg. And there was like, oh, you need a running back and a O lineman to be good. I'm like, it's like, they aren't just a running back. This is like CMC's in the MVP conversation.
Ridiculous.
Debo's an absolute difference maker, and Trent Williams is arguably the best left tackle in football.
He is. So, arguably, he is.
Yeah. So I mean, you're looking at 4 out of the 5 offenses are kind of anemic. And I'm like, well, so maybe you guys are really good, just not historic, and so I guess they still have a stat where they are historic, which is success rate allowed. They're up over 36%, and they're under 36%, which is good. And the next lowest are all over 38%, including Jets, Saints, and then the Ravens are right up around 40%. 49ers closer to 42%, along with the Dolphins. Anyway, bottom line is they came at me with this stuff, and they're like, oh, see, we're the most historic. Then there's like, all right, so going off of that stat, this defense success rate, the Cleveland Browns are the number 1 team in recent history, the last 25 years. And so that's impressive for sure. But like, I'm looking at the list and I'm like, okay, well, where's that LOB defense on that list, right? This is one of the best defenses I ever watched. They don't make the list. I'm like, so how? They're like, they're like, obviously you don't understand how this defensive, efficiency statistic works. And I was like, it's a stat, and stats can be misleading without context, something I always say. And so when this other guy came at me with the one where they're leading an EPA and this defensive success rate and EPA, I like listed out some of those offenses that they've played, and it's like they're a lot of the teams they played this year are not good offenses like this, and the only best ones were like us, so injured you guys. But I discount the Ravens a little bit just because it's divisional, right? And so they know you really well, so it's easier, I would think, to defend you guys than a team like us who barely ever sees you. But like of that, the success rate allowed and EPA allowed, they're leading in both and by a pretty wide margin. But I said basically like Steelers, now they've moved up from 30th, they're now 27th. But you played the Steelers twice, so that's a little heavier ranking on the worst team on their record. Titans are still at 26, holding strong. Broncos 25th, Cards 24th, Bears 22nd, Bengals 21st, Seahawks 20th. And I would even argue to say like the Bengals, like that 21st, a lot of that was from when Joe Burrow was healthy, and if you played them when they weren't, they were a lot worse than that. So anyway, bottom line is like I told the Browns fans, I'm like, look, I get it, you guys. This is like your Super Bowl. This is all you got. I get it, but try and be realistic, because I think their defense is up there with ours and y'all. I just don't think any of these three defenses are historic.
They're not. Let me just put it to you this way. They are clinging on to the hope that they can be considered historically great in something. It doesn't matter what they do, what they say. If they were a historically elite defense, they would be where we are right now. Both of our teams, they would be 11-3. They'd be 12-2. They'd be undefeated. That's funny. Let's just put it to you that way. When I look at historic defenses, I look at the 85 Bears, I look at my 2000 Ravens, my 2006 Ravens, the 2002 Buccaneers, the Legion of Boom, like defenses you were
same.
So
maybe even the 2015 Broncos.
Correct. I'm looking at teams that are over a 16-game span the Ravens allowed 10.6 points a game for an entire year, and they allowed less than that in the playoffs of that year. When you're getting smoked repeatedly by good teams, I don't care what your defensive stats say. What are you, 8-5, 8-6, 9-5, something like that? I mean, you have a great record. I'm not disputing that. They beat us once this year. I'm not disputing that either. But at the same time, your defense is really good, but that's where it begins and ends. Is you're really good. You're not historic. You're trying to cherry pick one particular stat to prove you're elite over the course of 25 years. Let's just call it how we see it. What are their stats lining up against the historic defenses that are considered great all the time? You measure them up to that, and then they're not even close.
Yeah, that's sort of how I feel about it. I just don't, like I said, I don't think any of these defenses are historic. They're all really good, no doubt about it, but not historic. Silly Fungi came through with a funny one. He says, how do you catch a unique rabbit? Unique up on it. How do you catch a tame rabbit? Tame way. Unique up on it. How do you catch a common rabbit? Come on, tame way. Unique up on it. It's actually one of his best. Or you could do like wah, 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 like a lot of times after the dad.
I dig the interaction with your fans, man. That's cool.
Yeah, I will say it. Like I said, very punny. That one is like, puns galore. So James Durnall, he said this. It gave you a chuckle. I guess it's a good thing. The sexy bunch of spud-faced cabbage lickers. It sounds like a derogatory, but he always says it in a nice way. So
hey.
He says stats are everything.
I've been called worse.
Yeah, because there's that saying like there are lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics. Because a lot of times statistics can be bent to fit your argument. And what the Browns fans would say to me was, well, Ted, we don't have a scoring defense like the Ravens and 49ers do because our offense sucks. And there's some merit to that. That, if you give the other team the ball with really good field position, then they're more likely to score. That's pretty much common sense. no matter how good the defense is. And so, but then I was saying, like, well, if you're going just off yards, the Niners give up tons of yards when we're blowing teams out. We don't really care that they're getting yards, and we have kind of a bend don't break defense. We're really good in the red zone. We don't allow a lot of scoring. So anyway, there's lots of different ways to argue it, but I just wanted your opinion on the Browns D, if they're historic or not. I don't think they are. You don't think they are. I'm glad to hear it. So James has a little bit of a scouting tip for you. He says the 49ers are susceptible to screens, to running backs, and tight ends exploiting the line of scrimmage. Unfortunately, these are the Ravens' strengths.
Yeah, there are strengths, but they were a really good strength when Keaton Mitchell was healthy. The quick pop screens, hitting them out of the backfield, and his ability to hit the edge and outrun ankles. That's been talked about on TV, or at least on local Baltimore television since he's been active. But that gruesome ACL tear last week really is stifling us. And our third running back is now Melvin Gordon. If this was 2017, I'd be ecstatic. If 2023, almost 2024, I'm just praying that he sees limited touches, if any. Justice Hill's good in the screen game. Gus is our ground and pound. He's north and south. You're not going to get many outside runs out of Gus. He's going to run right up the middle. 3 yards in a cloud of dust most of the time, more like 4 or 5 with him these days. But that's a good analysis. I have been doing some research on you guys, and I do follow along as much as I can on like NFL Network and stuff. But that's something that the Ravens got to exploit. If we want to, this is going to have to be a shootout because both of our defenses bend but don't break. So that's gonna leave our offenses open to long drives and a lot of yards and a lot of points.
There you go. Good to know. James also said, I don't respect their wide receiver room, but Lamar has that magic in him. Lamar is incredible. He's electric. Maybe the best runner and I've seen since Barry Sanders. It seems like he's.
Yeah. I'm not one of the Lamar haters. This past offseason, I was fed up with the saga of the contract. Now that that's out of the way, I'm back to focusing on the football side of things because the contract was like a dark cloud over the team for the better part of the last 2 years. Ever since Josh Allen got paid, it was like, when is Lamar getting his money? But now that that's out of the way, I actually cringe these days now seeing Lamar on designed runs, even though that's a strength. He's a little bit older. He's not outrunning everybody on the field still. He's getting chased down by faster linebackers and cornerbacks. I don't want to see this guy get hurt. This is around the time the last 2 years where Lamar had a season-ending injury. So I hold my breath every time he has to take off or he chooses to take off running. As for the wide receiver room, Ted, it's underrated, and I'm not going to say that because they're my guys. Full transparency. I had a chance to coach at Odell Beckham's football camp here in July in Baltimore, so I'm a little bit biased. I got to meet him and hang out with him, take pictures and all that. Got his autograph. Nelson Aguilar and Rashad Bateman are pretty decent for wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. Bateman's really been coming on lately. He had the most volume in terms of targets last week. He's good at moving the chains. A lot of his catches are for first downs. He's sneaky, quick. He gets open. Odell Beckham, if he plays, he was on the injury report today. If he plays, he's to the point now where he's healthy enough to where teams are starting to respect him, and you can't just can't throw your dime back on him anymore because he's scoring touchdowns. He's taking the ball for 15, 20, sometimes 30 yards after the catch. And Zay Flowers is come on as one of the most electric wide receivers that we've seen in wear a Ravens uniform probably in the history of our team. He's that good.
Wow. That's some high praise, no doubt about it. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, and OBJ, we know he has it in him. It's just, can he stay healthy? That's really what it comes down to. James Renall was kind of agreeing with the stats can be misleading. We are being told that we're number one against the run. He calls BS because we blow teams out. We need to pass, so the run stats are skewed. Absolutely true. Also, most of those stats against the run were accrued with Armstead and Javon Hargrave playing our two defensive tackles. And when they're not, it's much more difficult to keep Fred and Dre clean. And then they start to press and they don't play as well. So we saw that definitely against the Cards, a lot of missed tackles. We've seen a lot of missed tackles for this team this season, which is very uncharacteristic for 49ers defenses. Usually that's one thing we can hang our hat on is really good tackling. It says I'm overblowing teams now. We are the number one seed. Already got the playoff spot out of all the games that I want to entertain us. I want to see a defensive masterclass. But yeah, me too. And it's like, obviously, Matt, we can't both root for each other's teams, but I think we can root for, a good game. We can root for no injuries. And also, hopefully no bad calls by the refs, or not too many, none that decide the game. It's always frustrating when you feel like you got robbed by the refs. But you mentioned, we won't not want to see Lamar get hurt. I don't want to see anyone get hurt, not even our worst enemy like the Seahawks, let alone the Ravens, who I'm still a little bitter over that Super Bowl, but it's been a while.
I wasn't really going to talk about the Super Bowl, Ted, because I know that can be a sore subject. I'm friends with quite a few 49ers fans. There's a lot over here in Baltimore. You'd be surprised. There's a good amount because a lot of them are in the generation in between the Colts and the Ravens, so they had to find somebody to root for. I truly believe that power outage. I don't want to sound like a tinfoil hat guy and say that was orchestrated, but we're pouncing you guys the first half. We come out, Jacoby runs a kick return back, and it just seemed all too convenient. So I'm just like, okay, because we lost momentum, you guys gained momentum. There was like a 20-minute delay after the game. I mean,
no, we made our comeback. We almost,
And you're probably going to think this is crazy. And
I'm kind of a tinfoil hat guy myself, and that makes perfect sense, honestly.
Because I think people were going to start tuning out. If we would have scored another touchdown or a touchdown in the field goal, that might have been where everybody starts turning the game off and getting ready, for the rest of their party. But I'll say this, and I've told Ravens fans this before. I don't care what anybody says. I'll take that Super Bowl win. I love the fact that I got to witness 2 Super Bowls so far in my life. But that was a lot of contact by Jimmy Smith on the outside with Michael Crabtree. I will say, and Ravens fans get so upset when I said it on my own show over the years. That was a lot of contact. That ball was uncatchable, but that was a lot of contact. I think if you put that situation in the Super Bowl right now, that's a pass interference and a first down from the half-yard line.
I think it depends on the QB. I think if it's a big name QB, you get the call. I think if it's a Kaepernick or a Purdy or a Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe not so much. Maybe Purdy's starting to get to be there himself, but Purdy last year, I don't think it's that call for sure. Rick Diaz, Team Cali said DBs need to be on their A+ game, including Fred covering the tight end. That's mostly Isaiah Likely, I think. Bosa and defensive end crew also need to be on their A+ game. Yeah, I mean, our D-line has to mush rush what we did against Jalen Hurts. Hopefully we could do something similar against Lamar, which is, Bosa only bull rush, right? No spin moves, no stunts, no outside or inside moves. Get to the depth of Lamar, wait for help to arrive, and once you got him surrounded, then and only then go for the sack. Otherwise, if you miss, then you give up your outside contain, and he's gone for probably at least 10 yards.
I was listening today to somebody he's on our local radio station, somebody you're familiar with as a lifelong Niners fan, Vinny Serrato. And Vinny's actually been on my show before. Vinny's a very good guy. I still text him once in a while. He said that in order to mitigate this 49ers defense, we're going to have to resort to a Greg Roman-esque offense for for the early portion of the game and rely on RPO because you got to stifle Bosa and Chase Young and Randy Gregory. And if Armstead and Hargrave, but that's 5 monster. That's a monster front right there. No matter which way you look. And our offensive line isn't the greatest. Right now, we are rotating 4 offensive tackles into our games. If you haven't, if you haven't looked that portion up, but we are rotating Ronnie Stanley out with Patrick McCary, and we are rotating Morgan Moses out with Daniel Fa'alele, and it's rough. Lamar's been running a lot. Lamar had to do his typical Lamar magic against Jacksonville because they were just bearing down on him, and you don't want to get to running around playing schoolyard football because you guys are elite pass rushers. And I'm not saying that because I'm on your show. You guys are like the elite pass rushers of the NFL. Collectively, when I saw you guys trade for Randy Gregory in week 5, I'm like, okay, they're going to be pretty good. And then when I saw you traded for Chase Young at the trade deadline, I'm like, yeah, he's going to go out there and have a ball because he's back with his college buddy. And I'll be damned if the first game he didn't have like his best single game of his career at that point. It seemed like, it's going to be one of those situations where we're going to have to lean on the run game and the RPO to mitigate that defensive line.
Makes sense. Yeah, and RPO should work well up the middle with our defensive tackle depth, unless somehow Javon Hargrave and Armstead are able to play. But I haven't seen any updates on that. I should probably pay a little more attention to the injury report.
Charlotte Gupta. Thursday. We're still 4 days away from the game.
Yeah, it's true. Charlotte Gupta, SG Sports talking about us. Check out his channel, everyone. Say hi to me. Hi to Matt. Rick says I'm not talking about Super Bowl. I know he's got to finish the rest of the games. I hear you, but it's hard not to look ahead when the teams are doing so well. Both teams got to stay healthy. So Niner Empire in the East and West, South. Merry Christmas. There you go. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Have to control line of scrimmage. No penalties. Stop the run. Absolutely. Better now that you're here, Shardall. Thanks for asking. And Mooney Warden on Cloud 9. Come off the AZ game. Anytime him to step up would be his game. Jair and Kip can't let nothing behind him, by the way. What's the news on Lenore? All I saw was a rib and that he might play. That he was questionable to play this week. I haven't seen much.
I also saw Jason Verrett's back.
Yeah, Verrett is back.
Verrett, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But I would hope we would put him on bubble wrap until the playoffs because that boy just cannot stay healthy, unfortunately. So I would not expect him to last long if we start playing him now. I wouldn't expect him to make it to the playoffs. He's had like 2 ACLs and 2 Achilles, which is
he was elite. He was upper echelon, elite-ish before his injuries. He was a fantastic cornerback.
Even in 2020 for us, that was your Bosa and Sherm. Bosa missed almost the whole season. Sherm missed over half the season. And we still had a top 5 defense, not so much based on D-line that year as, still had Fred and Dre, of course, great linebackers, but it was a lot secondary. Jaquiski Tart, but more importantly, Jimmy Ward and Jason Verrett. I mean, Jason Verrett might have been our second best defender, or if Jimmy Ward was, he was definitely our third best defender that year. So he was great, and he got a lot of interceptions, a lot of PBUs. He was all over the place. He was great, just great coverage. So the fun guy says, "Watch out for the Ravens punt return." Interesting.
Hey, Tylan Wallace had the play of the year for us. I'm not going to get too much into the Rams game. That was a unexpected boxing match with those guys. They played us tough, but Tylan Wallace came in for our injured Devin Duvernay and took it to the house. Before Tylan Wallace, we drafted him in the 4th or 5th round, I believe. He was actually a first-round prospect for a wide receiver. Then he tore his ACL his senior year in college, so he fell way down draft boards, and we lucked out because he's a fantastic special teamer. And I wanted to say this before I lost my train of thought when you were talking about the defensive line for you guys and our running game. A lot of teams that don't really realize that the Ravens are still one of the teams that utilize a fullback. You have our guy Juice. We love Juice over here in Baltimore still. Juice Check is one of our favorite guys that came out of the draft for us. He just got a fantastic payday. I believe he got $16 million from you guys when he hit the open market, and he's like a jack of all trades. He's the modern day Chris Cooley, if you want to call it that. He can play fullback, tight end, running back. It doesn't matter where you line him up. He's a fantastic player. But we have Pat Ricard, who is a 6'3", 215-pound fullback, and he's bigger than our left guard, which is crazy. And it's the difference between our running yards per carry with him in the game and with him out of the game is significant. It's almost 3 yards per carry difference. So that's another way we can possibly mitigate the defensive line. Is the Ravens like to run a lot of traps. They like to run a lot of counter plays to where they pull Zeitler, who's our right guard. They pull our tackles, and they love to have Ricard on motion just hit that hole and make a hole that's this big, almost instantaneously.
He's a big boy. Is he still playing two ways? I remember at one point he was playing some D-line.
He hasn't played D-line in almost 3 years now.
Okay. Makes sense. It's pretty rare to have two-way players in the NFL anymore.
Yes, it is.
But always fun when you got that story. Yeah, Ricard, he's a monster. He's giant. And Juice he's still got some juice. But we all keep thinking we're looking for his replacement next year. His cap hit is $7 million. It's a lot to pay for a position that most teams don't have anymore. But we'll see. We'll see if we can keep him. We thought that this guy we had, an undrafted free agent out of Oregon State, Jack Coletto, the jack of all trades. We thought he was going to be the guy. A lot of us thought it was going to be the guy out of NDSU, who ended up going to the Cowboys as an undrafted free agent. I'm blanking on his name, but he's a more athletic guy than Jack Coletto. Anyway, Jack got cut, so maybe we'll bring him back in the offseason if no one else does. But
Nick Baldwin's a free agent. The Jets just cut him for Aaron Rodgers' roster spot.
Really? Interesting. Yep. Interesting. That's good to know for sure. Team Kelly says, I'm not sure, but whatever it is, he handled it well. Oh, they're talking about Purdy. They're talking about Lenore has a rib contusion. And someone asked, is that what Purdy had last year against the Seahawks? And Tommy said, no, it's broken. And then he said, wait, wasn't it an oblique? But I think oblique rib, I think they're kind of interchangeable, even though shouldn't be. Oblique is below the diaphragm.
Yeah, you can't really do anything to correct rib injuries. You just got to wait them out. They're very tough to deal with, especially as a football player.
There you go. So I'm not sure why Shardall is bringing that up, but I'm not putting that up here. By the way, I'm blocking people on the timeline who bring up that player, so you can probably expect the same in here if you keep doing it. Team Kai said it's time for Juice to be unleashed. Sneak attack with Juice. Yeah, I mean, so many people are. One of my co-hosts recently was saying that Juice is overpaid, and I said, actually, he's not overpaid. He's just underutilized. It's like he's worth $5 million a year if you use him a lot, but we just don't use him enough. So anyway, we'll see. Don't worry, Shardall. That's why I gave the warning. But I'm done with people bringing up that name for no reason. And so I backed him. I thought he had a great camp, and Purdy did not have a good camp, but Purdy's had a great season, and I stopped rooting for that other guy once he became a Dallas Cowboy. So I'm not even going to mention his name. I'm sure everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. But I just am tired of saying nice things about Purdy and someone mentioning that. I'm just not going to do it anymore. So I used to warn people before I block them and stuff. Now I'm just blocking.
I apologize for mentioning his name in the beginning of the show. I did not know that was
no, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. If it's natural, if it's something that comes up naturally, that's fine.
It definitely wasn't intentional.
No. It's fun. I mean, ultimately, there are times when it's natural for it to come up, like in the Cards game when Brock Purdy got clocked in the head and left the game, and Sam Darnold came in. I started talking about him. I'm like, this is when we would rather have our other backup who could actually probably win some games for us, because I have no faith in Sam Darnold. I'm sorry, I just don't. Tommy, he's goading me. So as far as our matchups go, obviously defensive tackle is a weak area for us. If Lenore can't go, then nickel corner is going to be a weak spot. We've had some real troubles with Isaiah Oliver. He just can't cover speedy wide receivers out of the slot. Normally, offensive line is kind of a weak spot for us, but we've actually had some really good luck with John Feliciano filling in for Spencer Burford, our second year right guard. Feliciano's better. He's just better. And I wouldn't be surprised if Burford and him platoon, or Burford gets to sit for a while till the offseason. McKivitz, our right tackle, has been a little bit of a weak spot from the run game, but his pass protection is better than McGlinchey's. So overall,
I've always been a fan of McGlinchey. I liked him when he was at Notre Dame.
Yeah, a lot of people hated him here. I was not one of them. I always appreciated his run blocking. Quite honestly, towards the end, the second half of last season, his pass blocking was actually pretty decent too. His whole problem here in San Francisco was he was a number 9 overall pick, and he definitely never lived up to that. But as far as a good, solid offensive lineman, he was. He just not a top 10 pick. That's all. So Tommy says, yeah, Juice was way underutilized. Facts, yeah. And thoughts on Purdy? Like I said, I've got him between 2 and 5 right now in the NFL. I think 4 and 5 are not really elite. I think 2 and 3 definitely are. So I've got him kind of 50-50 on the elite question. I think a lot will be answered on Monday after this. David McNiner in the house saying, what up, Ted? Everybody make sure you check out his channel. Great stuff there. Tommy says, never do business with the Cowgirls. Hunter Lepke, that's the guy's name. They went to North Dakota State and is now a Cowboy. And I think he'll be a pretty good fullback. I think he has more chance of being a Juice type of fullback than Jack Coletta, the guy that we tried to develop. So somebody said that Tommy Huxley was the GOAT. He said, no, I'm just a camel. And so that's what this camel reference is for. So they're saying, what's up? We got Kenny, 49er Culp in the house saying, hey, Ted and Matt. What's up, Kenny? Welcome.
What's going on, man?
Has Armstead ever made the Pro Bowl? I don't think so. If he does this year, I think it would be his first.
I don't think the dude cares that he made the Pro Bowl. If you know what his significant other looks like, and the fact that he's a multi-millionaire, I doubt he cares.
Yeah, and he's like a big, supporter in the community. He's from Sacramento, and so a couple.
I like Armstead. I watched him when he was at Oregon. I believe he's at Oregon.
Yeah, he was at Oregon.
Yeah.
DeForest Buckner were both from Oregon.
Yes, because they came like right after Haloti.
Yeah,
not long after Haloti.
It was DeForest, then Armstead was the year after.
Yes, I was, I played line, offensive and defensive line throughout my playing days, so I always like to watch guys that were good on the defensive line and offensive line just to study them. But yeah, Armstead's always been good. He's definitely one of those guys that's versatile. He can play. He reminds you like a young Calais Campbell almost. He can play in a 4-3 or a 3-4. It doesn't really matter what defense you got him in. He can play the 3 technique, the 5 technique. You can put him over the center at nose for a quicker nose situation. Yeah, I respect Armstead's game. He's a very good lineman.
No doubt about it. Yeah, again, it's like kind of like McGlinchey, but a little different. which is, McGlinchey could never live up to the number 9 overall pick. For Armstead, it's the $17 million a year contract where he's very good, but you'd like to see a few more sacks for that $17 million price tag. But he's great against the run. He's a team leader. He's he had been an Iron Man for a while. He's had a couple injuries last year and this year. But this one seems to be pretty minor, so hopefully he'll be back. And hopefully he'll be back Monday, but I don't know. It seems like all this movement we're doing with defensive tackles probably.
I was shocked at the money you guys gave Hargrave.
It was about the same. Well, it was a little more. Was it 19 million? Like
I believe it was like 19 or almost 20, but that was that was crazy because I think he might be over 30 years old if I'm not mistaken. I know
he is
a little up there. He's a great defensive tackle. But when I saw that contract, I was like, wow, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, they're kind of similar but different in that Armstead is not a very great pass rusher, but stud against the run, and Hargrave is not so great against the run, but one of the best pass rushing defensive tackles in the game. So yeah, no doubt about it. It's interesting. They maybe complement each other pretty well. That nose tackle on the Ravens is going to be a problem. Brendel is not good.
Yeah.
Brendel's decent as far as pass blocking, but run blocking, yeah, he's no stud run blocker.
Yeah.
You talking about Justin Madubuike? Is that who you're talking about?
I don't know if he's talking about Madubuike or if he's talking about Michael Pierce. Michael Pierce is our 355-pound nose tackle that is an extremely good space eater. But Justin Madubuike has had at least a half sack in 12 straight games. The dude is playing absolutely lights out. This is his contract year. He spent the last 2 off seasons training with Aaron Donald. We drafted him in the 3rd round out of Texas A&M about 4 years ago.
I remember because it was the same year as Javon Kinlaw when we drafted him 13th overall. We could have had Madubuike.
A lot of people. We could have had Madubuike a couple times over.
Yeah,
he has been the most pleasant surprise because we've been waiting for this for 2 years now, and last year he would have games where he was dominant, and then he would have games where he disappears. But now, it's almost like the curse of the contract year. We're going to have to tag him if we want to keep him. But the guy is playing absolute dominant football. He's 300 pounds. He's like a cut up 300 pounds. You wouldn't even think he was 300 pounds until you see it on the screen. Between him, Pierce, Travis Jones, our second-year nose tackle, he's coming into his own as a rotational piece. Brent Urban, who's been in and out of Baltimore the last almost decade, he's fantastic this year in a situational role. We got the fountain of youth for Kyle Van Noy and Jadeveon Clowney, who are both playing some of their best ball right now, and Odafe Owe is doing very well in situational pass rushing. But this front we have, and then you got Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith behind them. It's
great linebackers.
And Kyle Hamilton might be the best overall safety in football right now.
That's some high praise.
I mean, I'm biased a little bit.
He was highly drafted too, though. So
yeah, he was 14th overall. I mean, he's taking snaps at defensive end this year. He's taking snaps at linebacker. He's taking snaps at safety.
So kind of like a Derwin James type.
Yeah. To use a little bit of a throwback name, he's kind of like the skinnier, lighter version of a Dallas Thomas that the Ravens used to have, who pretty much played everywhere on defense, and then he went to the New England Patriots and fizzled. But yeah,
I used to say with Derwin James, he could play almost any position on defense except for maybe run stuffing DT, like you said, like Pierce. Yeah. He's not going to play that role, but any kind of NASCAR defensive tackle, defensive end, linebacker, safety, corner, he could play it all. It's pretty crazy.
Hamilton is probably going to be our counter to CMC, and it's a size differential because Hamilton's 6'4" and 220. And McCaffrey's 5'10", 5'11", and probably 210. So you're going to see a lot of Roquan and a lot of Patrick Queen and a lot of Kyle Hamilton on McCaffrey, because your wide receivers are quite the load between Ayuk and Debo. So, and we can't forget about Kittle, because Kittle is sneaky good in terms of getting open. And it's just one of these things where it's going to be a chess match between Harbaugh and Shanahan.
I like to say that Kittle's the GOATEs, because I think he's better than Kelsey. I think if he had Mahomes thrown to him in that pass happy system, he'd put up at least those good of numbers, plus the yak, plus the blocking. Yeah, interesting. Also, interesting thing, my sponsor is from Baltimore.
Wow.
Yeah, the logo up in the corner, TTG, it stands for the Travelstead Group. And so they are a retail and hospitality logistics company. So they do transportation and warehousing for brick and mortar. They do FFE, which is fixed furniture and equipment. They do OSE, which is operating supplies and equipment. They do new store openings, rollouts, relocations, decommissions, from the first mile to the final mile and everywhere in between. Travelstead has you covered. Let them know they can help you by air, ocean, or land. They do closed loop solutions for retail and hospitality. Nick is the go-to guy there. Nick Travelstead, and Henry is his go-to guy. They have 100% US-based support. These are complex operations, so there's often fine-tuning, sometimes even snafus. It's nice to know when you pick up the phone, you're not going to end up in some call center overseas where they have no clue what you or your business do. Check out the link. It's in the description of the show. Click it. Check out the video. It's also in my YouTube About page, Twitter and X bio, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you follow me. Click it. Watch the video. Tell them Ted sent you. So, Matt, thank you for letting me pay the bills, and thank you to the audience for your patience. They've been very generous with me, and a great sponsor. So wonderful. Let's see here. So we got 49ers said, once those 49ers linemen start pushing, make way. I think normally that's the case, but we haven't played a defense like the Ravens. Supposedly the Cowboys D was supposed to be, but they just don't seem to be able to stop the run. It seems like if you run at Micah, seems like that's what the Cards did. That's what the Bills did. We didn't do it as much, but it seems like that's been if we showed the world the game plan of how to defend Jalen Hurts, the Cards and the Bills showed the game plan of how to attack the Dallas Cowboys defense, it seems like.
For sure.
So as far as other matchups for our teams, how are you guys on special teams?
Special teams, we've been pretty good this year. We haven't allowed any special teams touchdowns that I can recall.
Obviously, you got Justin Tucker. He's the best.
Tucker. He's had a down year by his standards. He's had a couple kicks blocked, a couple misses, but he's really corrected a lot of that. He's been relatively clutch for us lately. Our punter, Jordan Stout, our second-year guy, Jordan Stout, he is coming into his own. It's kind of hard to be a special teamer in Baltimore because we had 16 years of Sam Cook, and before that we had Kyle Richardson, and then we've had Justin Tucker the last dozen years, and then before him was Matt Stover. There's a couple guys in between, but Matt Stover is our most famous kicker. He came over here with the Browns in '96. So yeah, these guys are playing well. I'm happy with Stout. The punt coverage teams are really good, and Tucker kicks majority of his kicks have been touchbacks this year, so we haven't really had to see a whole lot. And when we do, the kick coverage team is good. We have a lot of guys that play special teams very well. That being Tylan Wallace, Arthur Millette, Justice Hill, Delshawn Phillips. Those guys are really good special teamers, and I enjoy watching special teams because Harbaugh was a special teams coordinator before he became a head coach. So I'm happy to see that our special teams are always stout.
Ours are a little shakier, especially at kicker. We have Jake Moody. He's a rookie out of Michigan, and he's been better lately. He had obviously a huge miss against the Browns where Purdy drove the length of the field at the end of regulation, and he missed a 41-yarder in the rain and swirling wind. He then missed another one against the Vikings the next week, but I think he's been perfect since, and he was definitely perfect before. So now when I say perfect, I will say that I think there have been a few instances since the Vikings game, since he's been perfect, where we were technically within his range and we punted. I think where we were at the edge of the range, you just, 50-50. You don't want the 50% chance of hurting his ego with a young kicker. And I think we wisely chose not to go for the kick. Not that we couldn't make it, but that if we didn't, the ramifications of missing were much greater than the reward for hitting it, I think, in Kyle's mind. So, Moody, let's hope he stays perfect. We'll see. But our punter, Mitch Wisnowski, is incredible. He's
a good punter.
he kicks these really high punts. He doesn't have like really big net punts or gross punts, but he has really big net punts because there's almost never any return because he kicks it so high that the coverage guys are down there right in the receiver in the catcher's returner's face. And he also has this crazy stuff that he does on these coffin corner kicks where he kicks the ball and it's coming in like a helicopter, or as if it was on a turntable almost, for older reference, a record turntable. Anyway, I would say special teams is actually kind of a strength for us in that respect. Now, kick return, we're weak. If you guys have good kick returners and we don't kick it out of the end zone, our kick coverage is weak. And it was weak even when we had George Odom. He tore his bicep. He's out, and he was our best special teamer. So, that might be one area of weakness for special teams. But other than that, we're pretty solid there. Let's see here. Tommy says our special teams is trash. I think that's what he must be talking about is the kick coverage because they definitely are nothing great. How's Lamar been sacked 34 times and Brock only 26? It's nice the Ravens have 20 extension rests when we face them. Yeah, this is something I talked about ever since the offseason. I had predicted 12-5 for the 49ers, and I lowered it to 11-6 based on this game because we are negative 20 rest days this entire season. Y'all are +9. So by the end of the season, it won't be 20 days. It'll be 29 days difference. But as of right now, it looks like it's 20 different days. And that's a big advantage for the Ravens to have 20 more rest days during such a short season. And so that was even thinking the Ravens might not be as good as they have been this season. I thought that might be enough for y'all to come out with a win on Monday night.
I can't see with the rest days. I'm not going to really argue with you on that because that would be silly. But for the sacks, Ronnie Stanley, our former All-Pro left tackle, he's been in and out of the lineup the last couple games. He's missed quite a few games this year. He had his knee rolled up on earlier in the season. He was in a non-contact practice Thursday today, so he's been out. And Patrick McCarry's been in at left tackle for about a third of the season. And then Morgan Moses, he's missed a couple games because of a shoulder injury. And then we've had a second-year tackle, Daniel Falele. He's been in. He's still more of a project, kind of like another Orlando Brown Jr. mid-round huge tackle. We just got to kind of trim some weight off of him. He came in at 390, 6'8", 390, just another one of those big Samoans. And,
like Mailata almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
For Morgan Moses, was he a former Redskin?
Yes, former Redskin
commander, whatever.
Yeah, former commander, former Jet. Moses is a fantastic run blocker. When he gets downhill, he just throws people around. It's amazing to watch. But his pass protection has been utterly disgraceful for the most part. And Ronnie Stanley's been so injured, he cannot anchor in the ground anymore. So he gets walked back into Lamar Jackson by middling pass rushers. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle Bosa and Chase Young. But yeah, Lamar's been running for his life quite a bit. And I'm not going to say every sack is the offensive line's fault, but majority of the sacks have been their fault. Sometimes he just holds on to the ball too long or he tries to run around and scramble, and he just gets called. So.
Yeah, and then also weapons, right? The 49ers have the best group of weapons in football. I've been saying that since we got CMC last year. And then now this year, it's even more like not even the best in 2023, but like how are they stacking up historically against the best weapons of all time? And so that makes a huge difference too when you got guys running wide open all over the field. It really helps. CMC creates a lot of gravity. I like to say a lot like the way Steph Curry does for the Golden State Warriors, where all the eyes are on CMC and Steph, and it just frees up everybody else to get less attention. So that definitely helps to lower sacks when you got guys wide open on time the way it's supposed to be. Kenny was saying he thinks Tuck's rookie year was just okay. He was an undrafted free agent, right?
Yeah, that was our Super Bowl year. Yeah, he was okay. He was good enough to stick around, but about that 2014, 2015 range is when he really started to be like, we knew we had something special in this guy.
There you go. He said banana ball helps. I think that's for Wisnowski. More passes. Who do you guys think had a tougher schedule?
If you look at the second half of our season, we've had a gauntlet, which we're still in the middle of. We didn't know that Burrow was going to get hurt in that Cincinnati game. The Rams came in and played us very tough.
The Rams are hot right now.
Yeah, the Rams, they were a punt return away from potentially beating us because we were on the verge of going. It could have been another 3-and-out for all we know. We don't know what the end of that game would have been. But Miami next week, they didn't flex us to Sunday Night Football. They announced that we're staying at 1:00 on New Year's Eve. Then we got Pittsburgh, Week 18, and we've played Seattle and Detroit when they were hot in the second half of the year. So it's been a pretty rough schedule we've had. I think our strength of schedule was in the upper half of the league this year, if not the top 10 for toughest stretch of schedule. You guys have a tough schedule too, so I'm not taking away from that. But the Ravens have had a really tough go, and to be 11-3 has been pretty remarkable.
No doubt about it. And like I said, I had us for 11-6 this season, so I'm pleasantly surprised that we only have 3 losses at this point. Although I imagine we will probably get one more by the end of the season, either to y'all on Monday, or potentially if we win the next 2 games, then I could see us resting people against the Rams in Week 18 if there's nothing on the line for the game, which would be a bummer because we have ownage on them. We're 9-1 in the last 10 games against the Rams, but ultimately winning it all this year is the most important thing. So we'll see what happens. As far as other things, like as far as weak spots on the Ravens, what are areas that you would say we should attack?
The edges on the offense, the tackles, and when it comes to the defense, pretty much isolation, getting our playmakers, one-on-one. Finding mismatches on that back seven, but definitely, blitzing Lamar. I'm not gonna lie, he still struggles with it a little bit. It's one of those things where attacking our weaknesses, rotating 4 tackles. If you're playing 4 offensive tackles, you have none. It's kind of like when the old saying, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none.
Right.
So that's our biggest weakness is probably the tackles and finding one of your weapons on a mismatch. But our cornerbacks are playing well. Marlon Humphrey's going to be back this week. Brandon Stevens, if you look at his Pro Football Focus grade, he's grading out as one of the top corners in football. Ronald Darby's back this week. Pepe Williams is back. And, of course, you still got Geno Stone, Kyle Hamilton, and Marcus Williams roaming at safety. So, Our linebacking core is a strength, not a weakness. So that's where I would say our weaknesses are.
Do you have a score prediction for the game?
Yes, I do, and I believe that this is going to be one of these situations where it's not going to be a blowout on either side. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. This is going to be one of those games where we are going to trade defensive punches. There might be a couple turnovers on each offense. I do think the Ravens come out on top. I can't go against my guys as much, and you guys are a fantastic football team. I'm going to just preface that. But I believe this is a 27-24 Ravens win. I think Justin Tucker comes through with a game-winning field goal. For the comment, yes, I am in Baltimore. I have been a lifelong resident of Baltimore City for almost 35 years.
Very nice, very nice. I think I echo all your sentiments. Ravens are a hell of a team. Like I've been saying all along, if we don't have the best defense, I think the Ravens do. And I'll say 28-27 49ers. Not going to count on Jake Moody to win it. I'd rather count on Brock Purdy and CMC, the co-MVPs. Now, who do you think should be do you think Lamar should be MVP? Do you think Purdy, CMC, Tyreek Hill? Obviously, it's not Dak, right?
I'm not a Dak Prescott fan. Never have been. I think that he's been propped up by a fantastic offensive line and weapons for years. He should have had 2 Super Bowls by now, and he doesn't. I hate that MVP is always given to a quarterback. Let me put it to you this way: if I had to choose between Purdy and Lamar as the MVP, I'm going Purdy based on stats alone. Now, if you're talking about game-changing impact, I might lean more towards my guy. But, Purdy's got 31 touchdowns right now. He could probably get to 40 by the end of the year. I truly believe that the MVP should either be CMC or Tyreek Hill. If he breaks 2,000 receiving yards, far and away, there's no reason why he shouldn't be the runaway MVP. I mean, he had 1,000 yards in week 7, and he's been banged up. So, I think it's McCaffrey or Hill for me. I'm taking the quarterbacks out of it because I want to see somebody else besides the quarterback get it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think CMC, Tyreek second, maybe Purdy third, and Lamar fourth. But I could see Lamar leapfrogging Purdy if y'all win on Monday.
I don't like the fact that they're going to really use Monday as kind of like the benchmark for who gets MVP, and that to me, that's so crazy that they should just make a separate award for like best quarterback in the NFL,
or call it MVQ,
or like make it the Tom Brady award or the Peyton Manning award, or make it like the Joe Montana award, something like a famous quarterback. Just give them an award. Jesus, like this is crazy.
That is crazy, no doubt about it. Anything else that we should cover while we're here together? Anything you want to promote? Anything like that?
I think we covered all of our bases, Ted. But I have a show tonight with my co-host Josh. We are going to be live at 9:30 Eastern on Twitter and on our Facebook and on YouTube on our channel. We have a couple 49ers guests coming on. In all fairness, I booked them before I booked your show. You booked me for your show, so I apologize.
Don't worry, that's fine. It's fine. And I have trouble with evenings anyway. I'm on daddy duty, so yeah.
I got you. I'm on daddy duty from pretty much after this until my show tonight. But we have Gina from Reppin' the Bay.
She's Gina V. She's great.
Gina V. Yeah, she's coming on the show.
I just met her recently. I went to the Bucks game with the 49ers Faithful UK. These guys here, this British flag with the SF in it.
Yeah, I saw that.
About 36 of those Brits came, and about 4 guys from the US were there. Ty Alston, me, and John Chapman and a buddy of John Chapman. I think Wayne Breezy was supposed to be there. He's a pretty big content creator for the Niners, but he couldn't make it. I think he's East Coast, so it's tough for him to get out. But during the game, I was talking to Paul. I was like, yeah, like Warriors game and Giants game on Monday, and then Tuesday, I got a late flight, but I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm like, hey, well, if you want to go to lunch, I'll take you to lunch in the city. And then we were talking about it on Twitter, and Gina's like, I want to meet Paul. I'm like, well, damn, you're in South City. I could pick you up on the way up. So I picked her up, and we all went and got burgers at this great place called Coswell's. Okay. Anyway, so I got to meet Gina, and so tell her I said hi.
Will do.
And we still need to collab. She and I haven't collabed since then. Neither one of us has like been on the other one to do it, but it's just like we're like, but we need to. So I would just tell her I said, balls in your court.
Will do.
No, that's great. I love Gina, and I'm not going to be mad at you collabing with other. I've got Darwin's Raven coming on with me tomorrow at I think it's at 12 noon. 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. So that should be fun. I also have my usual weekly show today. I've got Mike from the Man Cave. He's a Browns fan. He's not one of these like Browns is historic D nonsense, but these are people from the timeline. He's much more, like most people that do this stuff, that not many homers that do this. It's like people are pretty realistic about their teams. They'll tell you their weaknesses. They'll tell you, that not many of these people that I work with are like, oh, my team's going to blow yours out or anything like that. Because most of the time, that's not what they think. And then tomorrow I got Ballin' with Bash and Ted at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 Eastern. It's a weekly show for me, a regular one. But then next week I'm out of town. And so a lot less shows. Definitely not on Monday. I'm traveling Christmas Day. And then might get some of the regular shows in next week, but probably no away teams. It's Commanders. I don't know any Commanders creators anyway, so it'd be interesting. But did you have more stuff that you wanted to talk about?
No, I'm good. I do know a couple Commanders creators. I'll send them a message for you if you'd like.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't. You never know. It might work out. Yeah, that'd be cool. My problem is while I'm on vacation, I can't really commit to anything. It's like, we might be able to do this time. But, if they're cool with a quasi-commitment, then I can see what I can do. CMC and Brock, co-MVP, they needed each other. I mean, Brock needed CMC for sure. And obviously, we lost to the Eagles when CMC was there and we didn't have Brock. But Josh Johnson is not really a backup quality quarterback in this league. He is you guys backup right now? Is that
he is our third, or actually our fourth string now. We signed smart. Malik Cunningham off the Patriots practice squad.
Really smart. Yeah, like he's not a backup quarterback in this league. He was our fourth string. If he's your third or fourth, you're fine. Whatever. What do you expect when you get to that point? But for backup, like I'm convinced the 49ers would have done something better than him if we had known right when Jimmy G got injured that he wouldn't be back for the NFC Championship game. Also, there was still hope that Trey would be back for the NFC Championship game, but he had to get the revision surgery to get the hardware out of his ankle. Anyway, I brought him up. There you go. But that's a natural thing. That was a natural part of the conversation. It's just like, I hate people just bringing up when I say something nice about Purdy and they're like, well, you like Trey. I'm like, I did like Trey. I still like Trey. I still would have liked to have seen Trey with CMC, but I don't know that he ever would have got to this level. What Purdy is doing now with these deep balls it's borderline elite. It's I'm not going to say elite yet, but I'm damn close. I'm damn close. There's Randy. Randy's been saying it for a while. Elite. That word gets thrown around too much, but he is playing elite. Okay, I'll give him that. His play since Trent and Debo came back and CMC is not dinged up anymore. His play has been elite before and since. I'm just not willing to call him elite till he does it for longer and against some better teams. I thought the Eagles or Cowboys would be the teams, but clearly neither one of those teams is what we thought they were. Just turns out that the NFC is kind of a weak division. And maybe just it's the Niners and the Ravens are the only good teams. I think the Dolphins are pretty good. Who do you think do you think much of the Lions, Cowboys, or Eagles?
I think the Cowboys are frauds.
I hear that word a lot with them. Yeah,
they're fraudulent. The Eagles have to bounce back from getting punched in the mouth a lot recently. I think they're still a very good football team. Detroit, the ass whooping we put on them, excuse my language, but the whooping we put on them,
it's fine.
They, to me, and when they're not the only big boy in the yard, so to speak, I think they're a good football team. But if you get
maybe a year away, I've heard a lot of people say that.
If you get physical with them, they really struggle. And we punched them in the mouth immediately. You could tell, being an unbiased football fan, if I watched that through, without the purple shaded glasses on, first 4 drives, that game was over. We took their heart from them. We were throwing them off the rhythm offensively with our aggressive defense, and we were just running the ball down their throat, and we were throwing the ball all over the yard.
There you go. And then in the AFC, I feel like it's like the Dolphins and the Bills and the Chiefs. And then I don't really think much of. I mean, maybe the Bengals if Jake Browning can somehow keep this, Brown sanity going, but Browning sanity. But I don't know. I just don't think that's probably going to happen.
Yeah.
Ndamukong Suh, the Niners could certainly use him, but I think his character issues kept us away.
I thought we were going to sign him a couple of weeks ago. He's in Miami visiting them, so it wouldn't surprise me if he went back to Miami, given that one of his favorite coaches is back down there. But yeah, that's where I'm at with that. Our defensive line is set right now. Now, if we have an unfortunate injury, yeah, but
Minshew is the best backup quarterback in the league, but
yeah, he is.
But he's a backup.
I'll say this though: they're not in this position if Richardson's playing.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. Tyler McGurk in the house says, "What's up, Ted?" Oh, what's up, Tyler? Did you see this? He was wondering who the jersey was going to be on the timeline today. Yeah, one of my viewers, Nancy Cameron, sent me the jersey, and I was like, should I wait till after the Ravens game? And a thing of beauty. And I was like, you know what? It's a gift. I'm just going to wear it. And she wanted me to open it up. And once I saw it, I was like, I gotta wear it. So old Steve Young, maybe on retirement. We'll see how Purdy does on Monday. But I'm fully prepared to put Steve Young up on display and up with JR up there, and go only with Purdy on the live streams moving forward. Brock Purdy, everybody's loving it. Yeah, because I was very hard on Brock Purdy during the offseason. I said that he was mid. I said that he couldn't throw deep balls, or well, not that he couldn't, just that he hadn't thrown deep balls well. And I thought that he could improve, but I certainly never had any thought that he could ever improve this much to where he would be one of the best deep ball throwers in the league right now. And, just carving up defenses. Incredible. I'm glad, like I always said, I'd rather be happy than right. I'm very happy to have a really good quarterback, and happy to be wrong in this situation. So, yeah. Anything else before we call it a day?
Just ready for Monday night, and afterwards, I hope you guys have a successful, healthy, rest of the season. And if we meet again, I'd love to run it back with you.
Yeah, definitely. And if you want to run it back anyway, anytime, I'd be happy to. You're great. And it's a pleasure, Matt. And thank Adam for hooking us up. And everybody, just make sure you check Matt out. He's on Twitter and X. He's at BWATB, as in boy, podcast. And then also Charm City Heavyweights. It's funny, when I was asking about Ravens creators this week, and I said, any Charm City creators, that you'd be amazed how many people had no clue. What's Charm City? I'm like, Ravens, man, it's Baltimore. It's not technically Ravens, it's Baltimore.
Yeah.
But I was blown away by how many people didn't get the reference. But oh well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, that's true.
At least you're something. I don't know what San Francisco is. I mean, they say the Golden State, for California, but and the 49ers, I guess. But I don't know. San Francisco doesn't have a city. I guess we're just the hilliest city. I'm going with Brock winning MVP. I mean, if I'm betting on Brock right now. But that's just because of what we talked about, how it's a QB award. Matt and I both agreed CMC and Tyreek are more of MVPs. If it wasn't an MVQ award, the MVPs would be CMC or Tyreek Hill. And top 5 Ravens currently in all time.
Top 5 Ravens right now: Lamar, Roquan, Matabike, Queen, Mark Andrews. All time: Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Jonathan Ogden, Marshall Yonda, Terrell Suggs.
Wow, 2 linemen. That's awesome. But I mean, I guess Ogden, and Yonda, those are 2 all-time HOF players for sure. If I was doing top 5 currently, I mean, my favorite is Kittle. And then from there, it gets a little tougher. There's so many Niners I like a lot. I definitely like CMC and Debo. I definitely like Fred and Bosa. That's 5. But I got to sneak Purdy in there somehow now. I'm in my top 5, so I don't know who you cut. Trent Williams is another one too. Can you give me 7?
Hey, take it. That's fine,
7. I can't cut it to 5. And then all time, Kittle would be at their all time. Joe, Jerry, Ronnie, and Steve, my jersey over here. Probably have to go with those guys. There you go. Yes, me too. So there you go. Yeah, I gave 7 current though. I kind of copped out. Don't make me cut 2. It's like
I would never do that. I understand.
And I was fully anyway. I won't go into. Well, anyway, I'll just say, like I said, we can root for a good game. We can root for no injuries and no refs. I'll say peace and go Niners. You want to give us a?
There we go.
Go Ravens or
go Ravens. Let's have a good game on Christmas night.
All right. Thanks, everybody.